Well, hello. Another tragic event of a man dying in the care of police officers, custody of police officers, whatever you want to call it. And they continue to wonder why police officers get a bad rep. They continue to wonder why police officers aren't trusted. And at the end of the day, everybody they want to make it home. Police officers don't start their shift and say, I don't want to make it home today. They want to make it home today. There are a select few that probably push the limits or do push the limits, and maybe they don't care if they make it home. Unfortunately, another human being has lost their life in the care of a police officer, and needless to say, social media and people in general are trying to turn back to the excuse that the man already had pre-existing conditions and that the arrest and the officer's knee and his neck contributed to compounding the fact that he had pre-existing conditions. Regardless of the situation, uh, the man did not want to be detained and pulled into a police car, but how it was handled was not necessarily the right way. But who makes that call at the end of the day? If you've got a guy that's over 6 foot tall, over 200 pounds, and he wants to resist, who makes that call? What do? Just say, okay, you're free, go walk away? If you're fighting police officers to put you in a vehicle, what are you supposed to do? Use the taser on him? You just tase him so much that that you pull it. He basically gives up and goes in the car. Um, you call for a paddy wagon squad because you're trying to tailor to his needs now, even though he's done something criminally offensive to somebody. A counterfeit $20 bill, and the store clerk catches him in the act. And when the police officers get there, they say he's outside in the vehicle right around the corner, and the police officers respond to it, and you act accordingly. It's crazy that it happened the way that it did. It definitely looks like a lot of neglect and a lot of abuse on the police part, but at the same time, there were plenty of people there that were actually saying he was resisting. He was not trying to go into the police car. He didn't just comply like everybody on social media makes it seem. But at the same time, this cop basically killed this guy. When you get into a situation like this and you're neglectful for another human being's life, you have to be held responsible for that. And unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time, this has come out. This guy has multiple offenses from what I see. He's had many interactions in the past where he's been reprimanded for being a terrible police officer, and they continue to keep him staffed and paid for. And unfortunately, when we have police officers like that, we don't need them staffed and paid for. We need to send them on their way and say, have a nice life. We just don't have an opportunity for you to make those kind of mistakes here on this force, and we want to hold ourselves to a different standard, but it doesn't go that way. So I want to show you the arrest record of exactly what was happened. It comes directly from the county themselves. I'm going to share this to you. I've got it pulled up on Facebook, so I got to share screen there, and then I'll read you the arrest record, and I'll share like a docket number and stuff, so you can probably go find it yourself. So this is the video on one of the local news stations here. I don't know if it'll play loud enough for you guys to hear it.
In South Minneapolis last night. In the video, you can see an officer kneeling on Floyd's neck, pinning him to the ground outside Cup Foods on Chicago and East 38th Street. Floyd died a short time later. Today, in South Minneapolis last night.
Okay, so
in the video, you can see an officer kneeling on Floyd's neck, pinning him to the ground.
Here's the video of the officer, like literally pinning him into the ground, into the asphalt with his knee. The guy's face is in the asphalt, his knee is in his neck, in between his shoulder and his head, and he's really pinning it. I mean, you can tell it's probably extremely uncomfortable. I don't want my face pinned into the asphalt like that, especially when you have that many officers around. You know, there's different ways of trying to coerce a guy into calming down and actually doing what you want him to do. You just have to have the proper training to do it. So if he was having an episode where he was fighting them, this is not how you handle it. Even if they are getting to the point where they're trying to resist you going in the car, this is definitely not how you handle it. But not over a counterfeit $20 bill. I mean, for God's sake, there are murderers and stuff out there that calmly get into cars. And this guy it was over a counterfeit $20 bill. Yes, that's against the law. You shouldn't do stuff like that. It's extremely dishonest, but not like this. This is not how this gets handled. And then if we go to the next, this is the state of Minnesota, county of Hennepin. Derek Michael Chauvin, 3/19/76, 44 years old. The complainant submits this complaint to the court and states that there is probable cause to believe defendant committed the following offense: charge, murder, 3rd degree, perpetrating amenity, dangerous act, evincing depraved mind, Minnesota Statute 609-.195A with reference to 609.195A, maximum sentence 25 years, offense level felony, offense date on or about 5/25/2020, control ICR number 20200338, charge description: that on or about May 25th, 2020 in Hennepin County, Minnesota, Derek Michael Chauvin caused the death of George Floyd by perpetrating an act eminently dangerous to others and evincing a depraved man without regard for human life. Charge: manslaughter, 2nd degree, culpable negligence creating unreasonable risk, Minnesota Statute 609.205 with reference to 609.205, maximum sentence 10 years and or $20,000, offense level felony, offense date on or about 5/25/2020, control ICR number 20200338, charge description: that on or about May 25th, 2020 in Hennepin County, Minnesota, Derek Michael Chauvin caused the death of George Floyd by his culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk and taking a chance of causing death or great bodily harm to George Floyd. On May 25th, 2020, someone called 911 and reported that a man bought merchandise from Cup Foods at 3759 Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, Minnesota, with a counterfeit $20 bill. At 8:08 p.m., Minneapolis Police Department MPD officers Thomas Lane, J.A. Quang arrived with their body-worn cameras activated and running. The officers learned from the store personnel that the man who passed the counterfeit $20 was parked in a car around the corner from the store on 38th Street. What was that? BWC? What did that mean? BWC video obtained by Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension shows that the officers approached the car, Lane on the driver's side, Quang on the passenger side. Three people were in the car. George Floyd was the driver's seat. A known adult male was in the passenger seat, and a known adult female was sitting in the back seat. As Officer Lane began speaking with Mr. Floyd, he pulled his gun out and pointed at Mr. Floyd's open window and directed Mr. Floyd to show his hands. For one, right there, this is a direct report from the court system. Why would you have a reason to pull your gun if nobody's a threat to you? There's no reason that you should be. I was in the military. You don't pull a weapon until you're ready to use it or you feel threatened. It clearly says right here that the guy was sitting in the driver's seat and he told him to put his hands where they could be seen, but he pulls his gun to do that. I've been pulled over many times, and when I was younger, and an officer come up to the window and say, "Hey, bud, do you mind putting your hands where I can see them, just so I know I'm safe?" Never touch their weapon, never anything like that. And I've been with some scary dudes sometimes that, probably would warrant, back when I was younger, them feeling kind of threatened, and never once, hey, do you guys mind if you keep your hands out in the open where we can see them, just so we feel safe and we can continue to talk to you? But that's not the case here. Mr. Floyd pulled his gun out and pointed at Mr. Floyd's open window and directed Mr. Floyd to show his hands. When Mr. Floyd put his hands in the steering wheel, Lane put his gun back in his holster. While Officer Quang was speaking with the front seat passenger, Officer Lane ordered Mr. Floyd out of the car, put his hands on Mr. Floyd, and pulled him out of the car. Officer Lane handcuffed Mr. Floyd. Mr. Floyd actively resisted being handcuffed. Once handcuffed, Mr. Floyd became compliant and walked with Officer Lane to the sidewalk and sat on the ground at Officer Lane's direction. In a conversation that lasted just under 2 minutes, Officer Lane asked Mr. Floyd for his name and identification. Officer Lane asked Mr. Floyd if he was on anything and explained that he was arresting Mr. That's a typo. They actually need to fix that. That he was arresting Mr. Floyd for passing counterfeit currency. Officer Quang and Lane stood Mr. Floyd up and attempted to walk Mr. Floyd to the squad car, MPD 320. At 8:14 p.m., Mr. Floyd stiffened up, fell to the ground, and told the officers he was claustrophobic. MPD officers Derek Chauvin, the defendant, and Tao then arrived in a separate squad car. The officers made several attempts to get Mr. Floyd in the back seat of Squad 320 from the driver's side. Mr. Floyd did not voluntarily get in the car and struggled with the officers, but intentionally falling down, saying he was not going in the car and refusing to stand still. Mr. Floyd is over 6 feet tall and weighs more than 200 pounds. While standing outside the car, Mr. Floyd began saying and repeating he could not breathe. The defendant went to the passenger side and tried to get Mr. Floyd into the car from that side, and Lane Quang assisted. The defendant pulled Mr. Floyd out of the passenger side of the squad car at 8:19. Well, this doesn't make sense. While standing outside the car, Mr. Floyd began saying and repeating that he could not breathe. The defendant, this Chauvin officer, went to the passenger side and tried to get Mr. Floyd into the car from that side, and Lane Quang assisted. The defendant pulled Mr. Floyd out of the passenger side of the squad car at 8:19, and Mr. Floyd went to the ground face down and still handcuffed. Quang held Mr. Floyd's back and Lane held his legs. The defendant, Chauvin, placed his left knee in the area of Mr. Floyd's head and neck. "I can't breathe," Mr. Floyd said multiple times and repeatedly said "mama" and "please" as well. The defendant and the other 2 officers stayed in their positions. The officer said, "You are talking fine, Mr. Floyd," as he continued to move back and forth. Lane asked, "Should we roll him on his side?" And the defendant, Chauvin, the guy with his knee in his neck, said, No, staying put where we got him." Officer Lane said, "I am worried about excited delirium or whatever," the defendant said. "That's why we have him on his stomach." None of the 3 officers moved from their position. BWC video shows Mr. Floyd continued to move and breathe. At 8:24:24, Mr. Floyd stopped moving. At 8:25:31, the video appears to show Mr. Floyd ceasing to breathe or speak, Lane said. "Want to roll him on his side?" Quang checked Mr. Floyd's right wrist for a pulse and said, "I couldn't find one." None of the officers moved from their positions. At 8:27, the defendant that had his knee in his neck, Mr. Chauvin, Officer Chauvin, the defendant removed his knee from Mr. Floyd's neck. An ambulance and emergency medical personnel arrived. The officers placed Mr. Floyd on a gurney, and the ambulance left the scene. Mr. Floyd was pronounced dead at Hennepin County Medical Center. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner conducted Mr. Floyd's autopsy on May 26, 2020. The full report of the ME is pending, but the ME has made the medical examiner. The full report of the medical examiner is pending, but the medical examiner has made the following preliminary findings. The autopsy revealed no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or strangulation. Mr. Floyd had underlying health conditions, including coronary artery disease, and hypertensive heart disease. The combined effects of Mr. Floyd's being restrained by the police and his underlying health conditions and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. The defendant had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds total. 2 minutes and 53 seconds of this was after Mr. Floyd was non-responsive, dead. Police are trained that this type of restraint with a subject in a prone position is inherently dangerous. Defendant is in custody. So, complaint requests the defendant subject to bail conditions release be arrested, or that the other lawful steps be taken to obtain the defendant's appearance in court. 2, detained if already in custody, pending further proceedings, and that said defendants otherwise be dealt with according to law. Complaint declares under penalty of perjury that everything stated in this document is true and correct under this Minnesota statute. Complainant, Michelle M. Fresno, Special Agent, electronically signed, Ramsey County, Minnesota. Prosecuting Attorney Amy Sweesey. The finding of probable cause, summons, warrant, order of detention. This one was X'd out as a warrant. To the sheriff of the above named county or other persons authorized to execute this warrant, I order in the name of the statute of Minnesota that the defendant be apprehended and arrested without delay and promptly before the court, if in session, and if not, before a judge or judicial officer of such court without unnecessary delay, and in the event not later than 36 hours after the arrest, as soon as judge or judicial officer is available to be dealt with according to law. And then down here it says, it's checked off, execute nationwide, and it says, since the defendant is already in custody, I will order subject or bail or conditions of release that the defendant continue to be detained pending further proceedings. Bail $500,000, conditions of release. This complaint, duty subscribed, is sworn to sign under penalty of perjury, issued undersigned judicial officer as of the following date, May 29, 2020. Sworn to testimony before the judicial officer by the following witnesses: State of Minnesota plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, defendant. And then here's the statistics of the SLS person ID 880184, SILS tracking number 3173921, and then male, white, fingerprints, yes, and kind of like the fact sheet. So this is the warrant. They don't know what was in his system. They just said if anything was in his system, that could have been the contributing factor to what was going on, but they didn't specify exactly what it was. So Keto Queen Baltimore says, so true. Hi, I'm from Baltimore, and we went through this 5 years ago. Thank God for you and all my white friends for keeping it real and speaking up for doing right. We appreciate you and love you all. Look, guys, you know, I'm probably one of the most neutral conservatives that are around. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And what I do have to tell you is, you know, even though I'm pro-police, I don't like censoring people. I don't like abusive people. I don't like taking things too far just because you have the right to do it. You know, I was talking to one of my cousins one day and I was like, how do you guys break the law all the time and get away with it? You know, and he's a police officer. I'm not going to say where he's a police officer or give his name, but you know, I said, you go 10, 15, 20 miles over the speed limit and it's like you just wave at each other and smile, even though it's dangerous and you can put somebody else's life at, you know, you can kill somebody else if you got into an accident, but one of us do it and we can't do it. Or, you know, something happens and you can get out of it quick. If you've done something, you just call somebody up at the police station or call a friend or somebody and you're out of it. And I said, you know, I think you guys get away with more dirty stuff than we do, and it's pretty sad. And he said, you know what? This is all I have to tell you, and this is the God's honest truth. Go to the academy, and you can do it too. Then you can wear that badge right there that says you can get away with it. And he said, I don't know what to tell you. That's just the facts. It is what it is. There is no excuse for it. But once you wear one, it's a completely different life. Go to the academy. Don't complain about it. Go to the academy if you want to get away with stuff. And I was like, seriously, man, this is crazy. You know, I have a detective friend down in Louisiana. We were at a bar. We were playing pool and stuff. And he says, you want to go over to the other bar? It's like 6 hours. No, it's not 6 hours. 60 miles away. Usually takes an hour and 20, hour and 15 minutes to get there because the roads aren't all 60 mile an hour plus. And I said, yeah, let's go over there and play. There's more people there tonight. And he says, why don't you get in your car and jump behind me and stay on my bumper the whole entire way, all the way there. And I was like, well, I'm kind of too intoxicated to even do this. I mean, I'm not gone, but I probably shouldn't even be driving. And he said, dude, just get in the car and let's go. So I was like, okay, whatever. You know, I jump in my car and he's in his unmarked car, and I follow him at like 110, 115 mile an hour all the way there, down all these roads, out in the country, on the highway, back on this. And we were probably doing between 95 and 110, 115 mile an hour all the way there. And wherever there was cops on the road, he would flip his lights on just to let him know that he was a police officer, and he would keep going. They wouldn't even bother him. And it's kind of like one of those things where I did that years ago, and I think to myself now, back when I was younger, you know, that mentality and the snowballing effect of those types of things going on and abusing that over and over and over again leads to, you know, a lot of law enforcement thinking that they can do whatever they want to do. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and I admit that there's a lot of bad criminals that make officers look bad. But in a situation like this, when you have a police report that's kind of like directly, or the arrest record, the warrant record, directly saying that he was completely at fault for this. The guy did have other underlying like medical conditions with the heart conditions and stuff like that, and this probably made things worse. All over a $20 counterfeit bill. I mean, I've seen people beat the hell out of their wives and stuff like that, and police officers show up and they slap them on the wrist and they leave. You go one way, you go another way. But you have one guy with a $20 counterfeit bill that you could have gave him a court date. You could have summoned him to court and went through the proceedings through court and arrested him right there and put him in a cell at the courthouse or something, instead of doing this on the street like this over a $20 counterfeit bill. I mean, for God's sake, we're giving away billions of dollars right now as a relief package and just adding it on to the debt of our economy. But a $20, nobody's getting in trouble for any of that stuff. But a $20 counterfeit bill negates the fact that a man has to lose his life, or promotes the fact that a man has to lose his life. It's not cool. It isn't cool at all. And all the people that I know of that are super hardcore conservative and like are even pro police and stuff, like even in this situation, some of us sat down at lunch today and we were like, it's too far. It's gone too far. It's to the point now where people do not even trust police officers. What about there's like a couple weeks ago, or it looked like, I'm passing judgment in a way, but I don't know what the guy's nationality was. He looked like he was like white and Hispanic mix or something like that. He was a bald-headed guy. Looked like he's probably about 6 foot tall, maybe a little bit more, kind of hefty, strong guy. And the police had him up against the fence, and he had his arms up in the air, and he's got his hands up, and he's not trying to do anything. And I think he was saying something that was making the police officers mad, but people do that all the time. Police officers are trained not to respond in a way because somebody says something to them and hurts their feelings. They have to look past that. That's how they're trained. But I think he may have been saying something. I don't know exactly. I could see the side of his face moving. And the guy was standing there for, 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds with his hands up in the air, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just hands just straight up in the air, and the officer was behind him, and the police officer was behind her. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the police officer starts going around the guy's face and like punching him right in his temple over and over and over again, and starts beating him in the back of his head, takes him to the ground, and then starts punching him in the back of his head and in the side of his face and stuff like that. And the female officer, she's just standing there the whole time, not doing anything, just watching this other police officer beat the living hell out of this guy and not doing anything about it. She just watched the whole entire thing happen. And the guy never fought back. He just tried to cover his head the best that he could while the officer was beating the living hell out of him on the ground. And it's like, This is why people now don't trust police officers. This is why when I get in my car, if I got pulled over. And this was a couple years back. I got pulled over by the state police on the highway. I was going about 12 mile an hour over the speed limit. I was late for work. But the ironic thing is, the police officer that was in front of me was going over the speed limit as well with no lights on. Well, he slows down and then all of a sudden kind of gets behind me and then pulls me over. And he comes up to the window and he says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I was speeding." And he said, "You have your insurance and your driver's license?" And I said, "Well, should I ask you for your insurance and driver's license too? Me and you go to work the same time every single day, and we both speed every single day. And this is the day you want to pull me over and you're doing the same thing that I am with no lights on, no emergency situation, no nothing, and you're pulling me over? You're going to write me a ticket when we're both doing the same thing? So what says that you're above the law and you can do that, but I can't, and I got to get a ticket for it?" And he says, "Well, you're just being a smartass now." I said, "Well, no, I'm being me. I'm being truthful. And if you can't understand what I'm saying, that's not my problem. I'm not going to accept your ticket, and I'm not going to assign your ticket." Well, he came over there, and he brings the ticket back, and he says, "Step out of the vehicle real quick." So I step out of the vehicle, and I comply. I put my hands up on the car or whatever, and he's standing behind me. And he says, "You just think you're a regular smartass, don't you?" And I said, "Well, I mean, if you're trying to get testy with me right now and trying to get something out of me because I sense that you're trying to make me act wrong so you can actually take me to jail, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put my hands here on this car and I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. You can take me to jail right now. I'm going to comply 100% with everything that you tell me." But I told him, I said, "I think you're a complete fucking jagoff. I think you're just a dickhead cop that likes to take advantage of other people. Now, if that makes you mad because I'm honestly talking to you and operating my speaking ability within my constitutional rights, well, there's a problem then. Take me to jail. If not, I'm going to get back in this car and I'm going to go about my business and you're going to go about your business and we're going to speed every day to work the same way that we've been doing. I see you every morning when I leave. You get on the road about the same time I do. We enter on the highway about the same time." It was a pattern, what you see the same people almost every day when you're going to work. And when he actually puts his body up against me in the back and he starts feeling down my side and stuff like that, trying to see if I have a weapon on me, and he's getting kind of rough. And I said, "Look, man, I'm a big ass dude and I'm not scared of you. Do not fucking get rough with me. I can tell you right now." And I have my hands on the car. I said, "Do not get rough with me. Don't try to play Billy Badass with me or this will end very bad for you. I can tell you that right now. I'm not going to play your games. And this, what you're doing is excessive. You don't need me grabbing on me and everything else and yanking and tugging. I'm wearing baggy clothes as it is. You can feel, you can reach down inside, you can do whatever you want. But you start reaching, grabbing and tugging and yanking me around and we're going to have some problems." And he quit. And then when he came back, he gave me a damn, because I have a CDL, he gave me a equipment infraction instead of an actual speeding infraction. Because that speeding infraction would have really hit my CDL hard. Guys with CDLs are affected like 10 times worse than just regular passengers. We have to be very careful. So that's why I was so ticked off about it, because he was doing the same thing that I was doing. And I said, "We do this every day. I'm wrong and you're wrong. But if you're going to give me a ticket, then you need to admit your own fault and let's get you a ticket as well." I'm just kind of one of those things where I was just pissed off and being a little bit edgy about it. Well, I got back in my car and I left. I paid a lawyer $300. They got me out of this $900 infraction ticket and I went on about my business. I've run into my fair share of knowing what it's like to be scared and getting jerked around and being screwed over by the system and having to pay a little bit of money to make somebody hush and sweep something under the rug and give me a different infraction, so that speeding infraction turned into an equipment violation, turned into nothing but a simple seatbelt ticket, so it wouldn't go on my record. So I paid the lawyer to make the court shut their mouth and give me a seatbelt ticket instead of an infraction. So the whole system's screwed. There's nothing that's honest from start to finish. And it's a dog-eat-dog world. We have a lot of bad police officers. We have a lot of good police officers. But we also have a lot of people now that never thought badly about police officers that now do think badly about police officers. And how many years has this stuff been going on with nobody actually shedding light on this and bringing this forward for people to see what's going on? And now all of a sudden people have a voice. People have all these social media platforms. People have all these different ways to express themselves and show. Everybody's video recording. There's cameras all over the place now. They're all up and down the highways. I can see cameras like every quarter mile on the highway that's recording everything that's going on now. They're on the sides of buildings. You can't really get away with anything anymore. You know, it's a completely different world now. Now you cannot hide as much stuff like you could back in the day. And I think a lot of the old school officers and stuff that are used to being able to hide so much and get away with so much can't do that anymore. And it's a completely different world to them. And now they're actually getting caught. They're getting caught doing the things that they shouldn't be doing, that they've been doing for so many years. Look at this Chauvin guy or whatever. Supposedly, from what I'm hearing, and I'm waiting to see more on it, this guy has had multiple offenses where he should have been taken off the police force. Multiple complaints against him over the years where he's been doing unjust stuff as a police officer, but nobody's doing anything about it. He's still a police officer. Well, now he's in jail. But a man had to lose his life for this officer to be taken off the force because somebody's not doing their job, or it's the good old boy system. You know, here I had a friend dear to me. You know, I consider him a brother, I love him to death. And he was a police officer for a local police department. This is a true story. And the mayor of the local town has what's called gambling tax, cigarette tax, and makes money off the prostitution. And it's an extremely rich town. But the prostitutes take over all the motels all the time. You can drive through this town and see it's really nice, very high end, a lot of money and stuff like that. But the motels have, they're overrun by prostitution. You can even see back in the day when Craigslist used to have all their pages and stuff like that, and backpages.com and stuff, where they were full of prostitutes from this entire area where this little town made it okay at. And he was a police officer there, and he said, you know, Rich, I can't even do my job without being corrected or reprimanded. And he said, I do my job, I bring a prostitute in, I get yelled at. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to give them a ticket, $150 ticket for prostitution, let them pay their little fine and let them go on their way. But now here it is, I bring one in because she's got some drugs on her, she's got a weapon on her or something like that, and I'm still being reprimanded because I'm not supposed to do that. It makes the crime statistics go up in the area. And when it makes the crime statistics go up in the area, it makes the neighborhood look bad. It makes the town look bad, and that less companies want to bring their multi-million-dollar companies into this area, and it makes the crime statistics go up, and it makes it look bad. So the mayor, the police chief, has told police officers, do not bring them in. Just write the ticket, generate the revenue off of them doing a little action, and then going, you know, they'll pay the $150 and turn around and make it right back. That's the thought. So why not just keep this revenue coming in and not bring them in for what they're doing illegally? It's a sad system, but unfortunately that is the way it is now. And that's the way it's always been. It's just now people are starting to see more and more of it. Look at these smaller towns where police officers and stuff get away with murder practically, and they have their own little small system that nobody ever gets to see. I was living out central southwest kind of Illinois, and people for years talked about a local small police department where a couple of the police officers were helping traffic weapons through for money. And it went on for years and years and years before any of this ever got caught. There was another town where one of the local, like not volunteer police, but they're one active police officer or police chief or something like that. And then there's a certain amount of like temporaries or part-time deputies or something that are going through training and all this other stuff. We're pulling people over and then trying to get sexual services from them to get out of the tickets. And this was going on for years before one of the husbands found out about the whole situation, and I guess it all blew up, and the guy got removed from the police station, and now he's not a police officer anymore. It could have been made out to be a big issue, but they swept it under the rug. And these were dozens of women that this guy would prey on, and it was happening over and over and over again. It happens all over the place. The issue is people forget their purpose. The definition of what is has been forgotten. I agree. It's the same with me. I'm not, I have uncles that were detectives. I have two cousins that are police officers. It's not honest at all. I mean, back in the day, they wondered why a lot of the gang members and stuff were so out for them, against them. I mean, they used to do sneaky stuff. Like, I know it sounds funny or whatever, but it leads into bigger problems. They used to take those M80s and drill like little holes through the top of them, and they would put a cigarette through it, and they would light it and hit it from the other side and burn that ash back just until it started to roll and really burn back into the cigarette. And they would crack open their door in front of Cabrini and toss it out the the door and just let it sit there and burn back. And once it would burn back and hit that wick, boom, that M80 would go off. And he said, you see, he would make like racist comments. And he said, it's like cockroaches running all over the place, man. They just scatter like somebody's coming in to shoot them or whatever. And he said, man, we thought that was so funny. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, like, you guys have some issues, man. I sense some racism going on. I sense like a lot of being bored on shift, so you go prey on people to get your comic relief and stuff like that. And I don't know, man. It's stuff that I wouldn't do. I don't take this job as, it's not something to play. You don't play with this job. You take it serious every day. But it is what it is. When people think men can give you rights, then they take it from you. If you are getting robbed by thieves and hires a security guard, but he too robs you just as thieves did, then what? You're right. You're right. No, I've seen the end of what a bad cop is, but I've also seen really good cops that have helped me through situations, that have helped me get out of trouble when I was younger and making the wrong choices and try to get on my feet and go off to the military and make the right choices and stuff. So I've been there. I know there are really good police officers, but the bad police officers, they need to be dealt with and removed immediately. So the main purpose of tonight was just to kind of get that arrest record or the warrant record out to you guys so you can see it. I wasn't sure if maybe you'd seen it or not. I'll leave the link to my Facebook post where you can get it, but you've already got the numbers and stuff where you can go on Google, go on public records from Minnesota. You can find it yourself too. I shouldn't have to provide that, but you can go find that. That's in the beginning of the video where I first started talking about it, the control number and stuff, or the docket number or whatever is there. You can go look that up. That's it for tonight's video. I just kind of wanted to touch on this, and uh, just I hope his family receives the healing to get over this. It may be. It may have been a whole staged event. We don't know. All we can do is speculate. Another video came out today where they were talking. I'll show you the video. I'll share it with you real quick. Let me click off of this and go to my. I had somebody share it with me, so I could possibly share it with you guys if I needed to. Share screen. This came out today, I think, on somebody's Twitter, and they shared it with me, and I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. I've never seen this before. So this is St. Paul police officer Jacob Pedersen. He smashed out the windows of the AutoZone. He's the provocateur, whatever. He provoked what started as the riot that helped start the looting. Stop blaming protesters and get back to blaming police. And then there's this video here, if it'll play. So you see everybody's minding their business. They kind of say they were pushed back into this area by police. And then this guy comes out of nowhere and starts beating the windows in the auto zone, and this guy's trying to get in front of him and stop him from doing it, but he's still doing it. He's reaching around him and he's knocking out the windows and stuff. This other guy comes up and all these people start to walk up, and they're trying to get video footage of this guy because this guy's the one starting all this stuff, and nobody was doing this before it. This is the talk. And then they're all following him right now, trying to figure out what's this dude's agenda. Nobody was doing any of this before he showed up, and this guy's over here talking to him, trying to get him to stop. And now he's threatening him, telling him he wants to fight him and stuff. You can see white dude with the white skin. He's got the mask on, and he's trying to tell him, get out of here, get the camera out of my face. And he's trying to tell him that he wants to fight him. And this guy's over there challenging him. And he walks off. He just tries to get out of there before people could figure out who he was. The story I heard is the dude's ex-wife popped up on Instagram and said, I know who that is. That's my ex-husband. And he's a police officer. And that's how, when they put the names together, they figured out he was a police officer that started all this stuff to kind of get everything riled up. I don't know that that's the truth, but what I can say is it's some kind of information source. I don't know for sure, though. So it's kind of ironic that everything was peaceful in the beginning, and then right around this time, when a certain person showed up and started showing some violence and stuff like that, people are saying that's when all hell broke loose, and people just started taking after this guy and doing the same thing. Then they went as far as the local, what was it, Target or something like that. They looted the Target, and you could see when the reporters were walking in there, the video I put up earlier. Let me show you that. Well, I don't know if I can get to it or not from here while I'm on StreamYard, but I mean, it was trashed. The place was just absolutely trashed. Sorry about that. I didn't mean for that to happen. I clicked on something the wrong way. I meant to go to a new tab, go to YouTube. Pull up my videos. And this was from earlier today.
In South Minneapolis last night. In the video, you can see an officer kneeling on Floyd's neck, pinning him to the ground outside Cup Foods on Chicago and East 38th Street. Floyd died a short time later. Where a crowd is still gathered, Jeff?
Yeah, this crowd, I want to say comparative to about an hour ago, it's calmed down a bit, but then next thing you know, you start to hear the sound of tear gas being fired, flashbangs being fired. We've had what believes to be rubber bullets of sorts fly not far from us, hearing people get hit. There's still hundreds of people here who are actually standing right by the 3rd precinct.
There's all these people right by that police station.
It's been a pretty chaotic scene starting about 6 p.m. tonight. A far cry from what it was earlier. Now, this all started at the intersection of 38th and Chicago. Thousands packed the area for the protest at 5 o'clock, but we're also spread out charges and a conviction.
When you look at situations, you say to yourself, could this have been prevented? And that goes without saying in regards to the situation. That young man was no longer a threat once you subdued him, handcuffed him, and you had your knee on his neck. You could have very easily got up, put him in a car like he was asked to on several occasions. It's heartbreaking. I mean, we're all human beings, and we're all in this community together. And it's tough to see someone
the protest turned into a march towards the 3rd precinct.
These are all the people that are headed towards the police station.
The initial protest started vandalizing the building, shattering a window, spray painting squad cars on the side of the building. Officers then showed up in riot gear and started firing tear gas and flashbangs, which you can hear right now. You're watching.
This is sad. You know, it's sad that they would go to this. This is ridiculous, you know. This is crazy. The floors are just soaked with water. You just see, like, you know, a couple inches of water on the floor. And then they turned to the 3rd precinct police station and started burning it up. You could just see them tossing wood inside that fire, just trying to make it worse. And they just keep piling it up, trying to get it bigger and bigger. And then they start throwing like fuel devices in there to try to fuel the fire and make it burn faster. And it's really crazy. The fire department trying to get in there to put out some of the fires that were started, and they can't because they start getting stoned right away by the people. They start throwing rocks and stuff at them, so they turn around and leave. So it's a little crazy. I mean, this is just, you know, they turned something that was peaceful into something very violent and didn't get anywhere other than looking like a bunch of uncontrolled people of all races, colors, ethnicities that are just ripping through stuff and just destroying things that doesn't solve anything. I was thinking how easy it is to get distracted. At the same time, this is against the lockdown, but could this be a way forget the COVID scam. This is so critical that we stick together. You know, who knows? As bad as they can, and I hate to say this right now, and I honestly believe this is the truth, as bad as things could possibly be right now, with how crazy things are with, COVID and the riots and stuff like that, and police officers attacking people and all the censoring on social media, and us really getting to see the true faces of everything. People have been talking about this being, the end of time, and all these people talking about predicting futures, and this stuff was predicted to happen, and some people are saying this is just another way for them to make Donald Trump look as bad as possible so he doesn't get reelected again, next year. And there's so many different theories on why all this is going on, and how this is orchestrated and brought about, that nobody knows the real truth. We just know that it's a shame that this has to happen. It's a shame that this is what life in general has led to. It's a shame that we're living in times like this and people can't act like decent people. That's all I have. I mean, it's really all I have for tonight. We've kind of covered everything about this, in my opinion, so far, and I appreciate you guys meeting here with me and talking with me about it. I really hope police officers will learn from this situation. Well, can you imagine how many riots would have happened if people didn't get any money? If people weren't allowed to go back to work? If they would have made everybody stay home? Oh, it would have been very, very, very bad. Very bad. And now everything's kind of opening up. Today they opened the bars and stuff back up, but it's only for outside seating, and you got to be spaced a certain width apart. And then in other towns and stuff in the surrounding areas, they have taken certain streets and shut the streets down, and they're allowing the restaurants to actually put seating out on the streets and come out to the people and serve them, so they can sit down at a table at a restaurant, be served food, stay their social distancing. So they're trying to let people get back to normal, but it's going to be a while before it's completely normal. I'm thinking that people are going to still do whatever it takes anyway. I go by the hot dog joints and stuff now, or the people with outside seating, and they're all sitting with each other, right next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. A lot of places, they haven't really let this affect them like that, and like other areas have. But I don't want to really draw that into this. That's the main focus was talking about this whole situation tonight, and I've done that. So if you guys have any other ideas for any other topics that could be discussed, or things that need to be brought up, or you'd like to revisit this again, let me know, and we'll dig into it, and we'll do it again. But for right now, this is 53 minutes of your time that I have taken, and I'm going to say thank you for that, and we're going to get off of here and move on to the rest of our evening, and hope and pray for a better tomorrow. Y'all be blessed. I love you all as always. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel. It's a little bit of mixture of health and my views on politics and everything else, and I kind of try to keep it somewhat civil, but sometimes I get a little excited and a little crazy, and it's normal. I express what I have to say, but tonight I feel pretty calm, pretty neutral. So thanks, guys. I'm gonna jump off of here. Y'all be blessed. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't.